Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. And together, as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Well, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Sandra Mittica. I am based in Amsterdam, so it's a pleasure to meet you all and join Gertrude on the Diversity Connector. Big fan. I started my journey in France, where I was born, and have lived all across Europe, including Germany and Scandinavia, specifically Finland, before basing myself in the Netherlands. I have worked extensively in different countries, including the UK as well, and other countries in the middle of Europe. I have discovered a passion in 2017 for being a gender equality ambassador. I started my journey working with one of my mentors called Misa Mink, Finnish woman based in the UK, who had an organization called Driven Women. This organization had as a goal to empower women to reach their goals, whether they're professional or whether they're personal goals. And I became not only the head of expansion of the company, expanding it to 4 countries, 20 cities across Europe, but also leading groups and helping women and coaching them, mentoring them myself to achieve their goals. So bigger groups of women, and also speaking at conferences and doing workshops there. And this really sparked an interest back in the day, because obviously as a woman, I think we all have challenges that we face when it comes to gender equality. It's a stranger to none of us that, the world we live in is inequitable in that case. And I started my journey mentoring and coaching women and joined many organizations across Europe, continuing doing the work, until I encountered one of my friends and peers in the DEI space, Chisholm Adizi, who owns a consultancy, a DEI consultancy in the Nordics, in Norway, called Diversify. And I reached out to Chisholm because I was working on an event with the United Nations Women in 2021, in which I was showcasing the work that the UN has done with a platform, a digital facilitation platform, for which I worked for and did partnerships in. And I was showcasing how they've used our platform in creating the agenda on how to close the gap for the next 5 years to come, including 10,000 voices of the public. And during that showcase, I was thinking, how can I promote this event? And I thought I will reach out to organizations who also believe in the same things that I do, which is working and doing the work to reduce the gender gap. And I reached out to her and found out that Chisholm also has a diversity and inclusion organization this formed a friendship, and I decided to also see what DEI means, what it means in other people's lenses, how people are represented around me. And I discovered that obviously representation is not perfect, and there's a lot of work to do in that space. And this is how I also became involved in DEI and working with other ambassadors around me on projects all across the world. So this has been my journey. And otherwise, I've been working in various organizations, from entertainment, working in companies such as the global franchise mobile game Angry Birds, or working for entertainment giant Live Nation. But I've also worked in tech companies and SaaS companies. And at the moment, I do a lot of partnership work in the HR tech space. So I've seen different ways of working, how different businesses function, whether they're SMEs or startups that are coming to maturity and are becoming scale-ups, or even big corporates like Chinese organization Huawei, who I've worked for a couple of years. So I've witnessed a lot of different cultures and a lot of different backgrounds, and what these profiles look like, DEI profiles look like all around the world, or also how inequalities are in gender equality around the world. So that's it.
So with your extensive experience in international business environments, how have you observed diversity and inclusion practices across the different countries?
Yes, so I have lived for 18 years in the Nordics, and specifically in Finland. And I have noticed that, at least in a corporate business environment, the Nordics consider themselves as a very inclusive and diverse culture. And for instance, a large part of organizations which I've worked with say how diverse they are. So as an example, in my previous occupation in 2021, I worked for digital facilitation company Housebase, and I was noticing some inequalities at work and thinking that there's inequities and there's a lot more that we can do to raise our DAB company profile. And when I addressed the CEO, he was very surprised by what I was saying. And he was like, well, what do you mean? We're very equitable and a very diverse company because we have a 50-50 gender split in our employees. So to him, what DEI meant was having men and women in equal numbers working in the company. And I think when you look at different generations and how they perceive DEI, there's also like data showing, for instance, there's a report from Deloitte from 2015 that shows that generations perceive DEI differently. So for millennials, for instance, workplace diversity is different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspective, which leads to innovation in companies. But for Generation X or boomers like this person was, and many leaders are, many CEOs or people on boards and in high places, they think that DEI means the representation of, sexes, for instance, at work. So this is a phenomenon that I've encountered a lot, also working with different Nordic countries. So what happened at the time is that me and my colleagues, a few of my colleagues who were really interested in changing the DEI profile of the company, got together and had several conversations with our CEO to really address the fact that diversity and inclusion is not only gender, but it's also the diversity in backgrounds, experiences, as you know, accessibility, intersectionality, and so forth. Yes. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So, based on your experience, what are some of the most significant challenges in promoting gender equity in the workplace?
Yes, I think most of the challenges are that you need to really educate people around you and really tell them, what gender equality, or diversity and inclusion is, for instance, because not everybody is able to address or not everybody is informed in this topic. As you know, we don't necessarily perceive inequalities unless we are in an underrepresented group or we understand what that means. So I think educating people in inequalities, shifting their mindsets. So, for instance, in a lot of countries in Central Europe, people take longer to shift in their mindsets because societies have been, for instance, very patriarchal, and there's a lot of gender bias or gender stereotypes.
Yes.
So yes, it takes a while to educate others, and people have preconceived notions about, for instance, the roles and abilities of men and women, or yes, people are stuck in old ideas.
Yes, that's very interesting. So, can you share some strategies or initiatives that you found to be the most impactful in creating social change, particularly in the context of gender equity and diversity?
So I think that strategies and initiatives that have worked well in the concepts of gender equality and diversity are, for instance, initiatives that come from employees themselves. And I think that's in general the same with most companies and most initiatives. Top-down initiatives rarely work. I think that creating initiatives that are coming from employees themselves, where you have certain ambassadors or people really feel for a cause or really active in a cause. I mean, that's how I started doing my work, or creating an ERP group and having people creating a plan together, and also representing all kinds of, diverse backgrounds and profiles in that group, and educate people around them, for instance, in what it means to not have a workforce that, is equal when it comes to genders. Some of my previous employers have thought that, yes, we are represented, like I said earlier, because there's a 50-50 split between men and women. However, men are then in leadership roles, men are on the board, and women are doing roles that are perhaps in customer service or more secretarial. So educating people in what it means. And I think for having successful strategies as well, it's important to measure and ask employees what are the topics that they want to work on. For instance, whether it's inclusive hiring or really asking them what they want to work on, and let them lead the process so they really feel like they can make a change. And I think that's a successful way of changing how gender equality and diversity is done in companies. And of course, measuring all that data also over time to, be able to show results and show progress, because people are very much into obviously being successful and doing successful initiatives.
That's fascinating. So, how have partnerships and collaborations played a role in your work on global impact and social change initiatives?
Yeah, so partnerships is basically part of my career. As I said, I'm an ambassador in gender equality and DEI, and I've also led initiatives in the different countries that I've worked for. But a lot of my time is spent on doing solely partnerships, business partnerships, for instance. And because I'm devoted to making a change when it comes to gender equality and also diversity and inclusion, I have brought my passion into the work I do, which is sometimes corporate. So, for instance, my previous employer, who had a platform that was doing digital facilitation, I realized that they had been working with the UN Women, but have not made a fuss out of it, have not spread the message. So I always find a little loophole or a way of finding something that I'm interested in and bringing it into my work. in this case, I was like, why are we not showcasing that we've worked on with our platform on reducing the gender gap for the next 5 years, and it's been done with the UN Women, it's been done with governments. Like, why are we not showcasing them? So I started leading a project and a big event, working with the UN Women in close collaboration to spread that message. I've also worked during my time with a project called the Inner Development Goals, for instance, which is a non-profit organization. You may have heard of it. It's basically changing an organization that helps changing people's behaviors so that we could help also reach the sustainable development goals faster. And I also brought a partnership with that organization for some of my employers, and telling them that it's very good for our profile to be one of the leading partners of such an important movement. Also, I've been an entrepreneur in the past, and in the company I was leading, then I had the opportunity to bring a partnership together with an organization called the Women's Bank, for instance. And the Women's Bank helps women in underdeveloped countries to start businesses, to be able to support themselves and not be depending on their husbands. So although my business was doing something completely different, I think the partnerships that I've done have always been influenced by gender equality or the diversity agenda, because I tend to bring work and passion together. And I think it also shows that when you do such initiatives, you're also a lot more motivated and you get good results, and it feeds business.
So that leads me to my next question. What personally motivates and drives you to be an advocate for women's empowerment, gender equality, leadership, and diversity?
So I think, like I said before, a lot of us women and individuals from different backgrounds have faced inequalities or have been through personal experiences that create a feeling of being uncomfortable, perhaps even some anxiety, or create a feeling that wants to ignite a change in way that things have been done. And I think as a woman, you also know that a lot of us have been perhaps treated unfairly at work or in different circles, and this is why I've been motivated to be an advocate. And I also think it's a beautiful phenomenon when you find peers in a certain space, such as, for instance, women empowerment or DEI, and you brainstorm together and you can have conversations about moments where you felt treated unfairly, and you can openly share this, and then come together and make plans together on how to do changes in things that should change, like gender equality, for instance. Yes. And you see results.
I love that. Now, you have lived in several countries and you have such a intersectional lens or view of the world. How has being fluent in 5 languages influenced your ability to work effectively in diverse international settings?
That's a great question. Thank you. I love that question. Yeah, that's right. I was raised in French and German, and I learned English in school, and then Spanish, and later on Finnish as well. And to me, being fluent in different languages is not only a skill that helps you communicate with others, but it's really a different way of thinking. So the way cultures speak different languages and structure language actually also shows like how the society is thinking. Like, grammar is really interested in that way, and it really helps you. It helps perception in how a certain culture works and how and it really helps in working in different international settings to see how this culture is thinking, because language tells so much more than just the words that it's attached to.
That's interesting. Absolutely fascinating. So, what advice would you give to individuals aspiring to lead or contribute to diversity, equality, and inclusion efforts in their organizations or communities?
Yes, the advice I would give to these individuals is if you want to start and make a change, I think you should educate yourself on the topic. Look around you, look in Google, like what is being said? What are the trends in this topic? Is there anything that is happening around you? What is happening in your community, in the town where you live, in the country in which you live? Or what is being done, for instance, on LinkedIn? Are there events that you can join? Are there, groups that have been created? Can you mingle? That's how basically I started. I, started reaching out to a variety of DEI leaders, and then introductions are made, friendships are formed. You get to work on projects. And also, if there's anybody you want to talk to, I always say, reach out, because most likely than not, if you are interested in a certain topic, it will be for sure that people want to have conversations about it if you share the same passion. And it's very easy to have a coffee with people who, share the same mission and vision and values.
I love it. Nothing is going to happen if you're at home wishing for things to come to you. You have to get yourself out there.
That's correct. Yes. And that's how you reached out. And I'm really happy to be here today as well.
I love it. So, how do you envisage the future of work evolving in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the future of work and DEI, I mean, obviously COVID was a terrible event, but also brought a massive shift, and also I think a very welcome change in how we used to do work and how we allowed people to work. So I think people were in the past, living their life around work, and I think the shift that happened allowed people to work more around their life. So I think it introduced a lot more flexibility. And I think that when it comes to the future of work, this is also, people are able to work when they want, when they are most efficient, and when it's more optimal for them to work as well. So schedules have become more flexible, and individuals are now able to work in different locations, of course. And also accessibility has been enhanced, because people obviously have different needs. And I think the future of work now is giving a lot more opportunities to people who are, for instance, having a physical challenge, and maybe prevents them to commute to the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that people in Occidental countries are nowadays also more aware of, DEI basics, like what those terms mean, why it's important to, change DEI and improve DEI profiles in the environment we live in, because businesses now also recognize in the Occidental world, at least, how important it is for organization to have more diverse individuals working for them, because it will also generate better business results. Yes. And yes.
Yeah. The interesting thing too is, COVID flattened the world. People from different countries can get work in other countries as well. So the world is really flat now because of what happened during COVID.
Correct.
And people were productive.
Sorry. And it's easy for us to communicate from one country to the next. You obviously don't have to be in the same place. And it's really become a practice that allows diverse cultures and backgrounds to be put together and, yes, really create a more inclusive and diverse workforce.
It's a fascinating time we're living through.
Yes, I love it.
So, in your experience, what are some of the effective ways to engage and involve diverse stakeholders in DEIB initiatives?
That's a great question. I think from what I've experienced, I think effective ways to engage all stakeholders should engage all level of an organization. So, like I said before, top down in my mind doesn't work in producing change. So I think all organizational levels should be present in initiatives, and involvement should be done in all levels. So I think that's one important component. And then I would also empower people at all different levels to be part of, changing initiatives, being in initiatives. So people also feel involved. They feel that they're held accountable to their goals. I also think that inclusive decision making is important. So involving people in the decision making, really seeking out their input and perspective when you set goals, really developing strategies together and implementing initiatives together. And then I think measuring data over time, like looking at results, tracking, and really seeing whether we're on progress, and providing training and educational opportunities. Also for people to be aware of DEIB concepts, and really creating a shared language to creating a change.
Yeah. There's a lot of work to still be done, but it's an exciting time to be alive, I must say.
Absolutely.
So many leaps and bounds that we've taken forward in the right direction, I think.
Correct.
So it's an exciting time to be in the space. Listen, thank you so much for coming online today and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much.
I was so grateful when you did respond to me on LinkedIn. You're sitting there in another part of the world. I'm sitting in Melbourne, Australia, and we're having this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gertrude. It's been just a pleasure to be here. I'm very grateful to, have had this chat with you. And yes, let's keep pushing gender equality and DEIB forward. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is bringing you stories from all over the world, reflecting different perspectives, different experiences. Today, Sandra has told us about her work experience in 5 different countries. Absolutely fascinating to hear. So be back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Sandra, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Bye for now, everybody. That's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open,